Hey everyone, and welcome back to Top 10 Worldwide. I'm your host, and today we're diving deep into the digital backbone of billions of computers around the globe. Windows OS. From its humble beginnings to its current dominance, Windows has an incredible story, and trust me, some of these facts might just surprise you. So grab your favorite beverage, hit that like button, and let's get into it. For so many of us, Windows was our first real introduction to personal computing. It's the interface that taught us how to point, click, drag, and drop. It's been the canvas for our school reports, the gateway to the early internet, and the platform for countless hours of gaming. But behind the familiar desktop, the start menu, and those iconic sounds, there's a 4-decade-long history filled with risky bets, clever marketing, legendary missteps, and fascinating design choices that have fundamentally shaped how we interact with technology. Today, we're peeling back the layers of this ubiquitous operating system. We're going beyond the version numbers and the feature lists to uncover the stories you might not have heard. We'll look at everything from its very first version, which wasn't even a true OS, to the story behind that one wallpaper that might be the most viewed photograph in human history. This is the story of Windows, and it's a good one. Let's get started with number 1. Kicking things off at number 10, let's talk about the very beginning. When you think of Windows, you think of an operating system, right? It's the foundation that runs your entire computer. But here's the thing. The first version, Windows 1.0, released back in 1985, wasn't actually a standalone operating system at all. It was, in technical terms, a graphical user interface, or GUI, that ran on top of something else entirely, MS-DOS. You had to first boot into the black screen and command line interface of DOS, type in Win, and then hit enter to launch this new graphical environment. It was essentially a visual shell, a pretty face for the text-based world underneath. This approach was actually a pretty clever and necessary way to introduce the world to the concept of graphical computing. At the time, most users were only familiar with typing commands. Windows 1.0 provided a bridge offering visual elements like scroll bars, icons, and of course Windows, which allowed for a primitive form of multitasking. It was designed to make computers more accessible and intuitive for the average person who wasn't a programmer. It laid the groundwork for everything that would come, but it was fundamentally dependent on its DOS underpinnings, a fact that often gets lost in the history of this tech giant. So, you have this new graphical shell, but what do you call it? The name Windows feels so obvious in retrospect, so perfectly descriptive of what it does. But that wasn't the original plan. Coming in at number 9 during its development, the project had a much more, let's say, corporate and technical-sounding name, Interface Manager. It's functional, sure. It manages the interface, but it definitely doesn't have the same ring to it, does it? It lacks that spark of marketing genius that would later define Microsoft's branding efforts. Imagine booting up your PC into Interface Manager 11 today. It just doesn't hit the same. The change came from Microsoft's head of marketing at the time, Roland Hansen. He argued that Windows was a much better name. It was simple, it was friendly, and it directly described the key feature of the software, the ability to have multiple programs running in their own resizable panes on the screen. It was a name that could be easily understood by consumers and perfectly captured the core benefit of the product. This decision was a pivotal moment, shifting the branding from a purely technical descriptor to a more accessible and powerful brand name that would become a household word across the globe. Building a new product is always a risk, but for our 8th fact, we need to understand the scale of what Microsoft was attempting. Bill Gates himself viewed the development of Windows as an enormous gamble. He famously called it the big bet, acknowledging that the future of the company was riding on the success of this graphical interface. At the time, Microsoft's bread and butter was MS-DOS, the command line operating system that was dominant in the IBM PC-compatible market. They were making a ton of money from it. Investing millions of dollars and years of development into a completely new paradigm was a massive risk. There was no guarantee that the market would even want a graphical interface. The concept was still new, and competitors like Apple's Macintosh and the Vision environment were already out there. Gates was betting that personal computing was destined to become graphical, and that Microsoft needed to be the one to provide the standard for the entire industry. He poured resources into the project, even when it faced significant delays. Windows 1.0 was announced 2 years before it was actually released, leading some to label it vaporware. But the bet paid off. positioning Microsoft to dominate the next era of computing. Alright, for number 7, let's talk about something every longtime Windows user knows and probably dreads: the blue screen of death, or BSOD. That jarring full-screen error message that abruptly halts everything you're doing, displaying a wall of white text on a stark blue background. It's become an infamous cultural icon in the tech world, a symbol of catastrophic failure. But its purpose is actually critical. The BSOD is the kernel's way of saying, something has gone so fundamentally wrong at a very deep level that I can't safely continue running. It's a system-level stop sign. It's designed to prevent further damage to your hardware or data by halting the system when a fatal error occurs. While it's incredibly frustrating for the user, it serves a vital diagnostic purpose. The text on the screen, often a hexadecimal stop code and a cryptic error name, provides clues for technicians and developers to figure out what went wrong, whether it was a faulty driver, bad memory, or a software conflict. Though modern versions of Windows are far more stable and the BSOD is a rarer sight, its legacy is undeniable. It even got a facelift in Windows 10 and 11, adding a sad face emoji and a QR code, making it slightly more user-friendly, if that's even possible for a crash screen. In the world of software, longevity is a true testament to a product's success and stability. And for number 6, we look at the undisputed king of Windows longevity, Windows XP. Released back in October 2001, it received official mainstream and extended support from Microsoft for a staggering 12.5 years, finally ending in April 2014. That is an incredibly long time in the tech industry, where entire product categories can rise and fall in just a few years. XP's reign was a result of a perfect storm of factors. It was a massive improvement in stability and usability over its predecessors like Windows ME. Its success was so immense that it created a problem for Microsoft. People just didn't want to upgrade. Its successor, Windows Vista, was plagued with performance issues and driver incompatibilities, which only made users cling more tightly to the familiar blue and green interface of XP. Even after the highly successful release of Windows 7, a significant portion of the user base, especially in corporate environments, refused to migrate. This forced Microsoft to continue providing security patches and support for XP far longer than they likely ever intended, cementing its legacy as one of the most beloved and enduring operating systems ever made. For our 5th fact, let's talk about the button that launched 1 million clicks, and the controversy that erupted when it vanished. I'm talking, of course, about the Start button. From its introduction in Windows 95, it was the anchor of the user experience, the primary gateway to all of your programs, files, and settings. It was muscle memory for hundreds of millions of people. So, when Microsoft launched Windows 8 in 2012 with a radical new touch-focused interface, they made a bold decision. They removed the Start button entirely, replacing it with a full-screen Start screen. The backlash was immediate, and it was intense. Users were confused and frustrated. The familiar workflow they had relied on for nearly 2 decades was gone. Critics and everyday users alike panned the decision, arguing that it made the desktop experience clumsy and unintuitive, especially for non-touch devices like traditional PCs and laptops. The public outcry was so significant that it became one of the most talked about failures in modern software design. Microsoft listened, or rather, they were forced to listen. Just a year later, with the release of Windows 8.1, the Start button made its triumphant return, proving just how integral that little button on the bottom left corner truly was. The sheer scale of Windows' reach is something that can be hard to wrap your head around, which brings us to fact number 4. When it comes to the desktop and laptop computer market, Windows isn't just a player, it is the entire game. For decades, it has maintained a market share that other companies can only dream of. Depending on which analytics firm you look at, Windows consistently powers somewhere between 70 and 80% of all desktop computers worldwide. That's billions of devices. Think about that for a second. For every Mac or Linux desktop out there, there are 3 or 4 PCs running some version of Windows. This dominance creates a powerful network effect. More users mean more developers want to create software and hardware for the platform. More software and hardware attract more users, and the cycle reinforces itself. While macOS has a strong and dedicated following, particularly in creative fields, and Linux is a powerhouse in the server world, neither has come close to challenging Windows' reign on the consumer desktop. This ubiquity has made Windows the default standard for personal computing across homes, schools, and businesses for generations, a level of market saturation that is almost unparalleled in any industry. At number 3, we have a story about what is quite possibly the most viewed photograph in human history. I'm talking about the default wallpaper for Windows XP, a serene image of a rolling green hill under a blue sky with fluffy white clouds. It's called Bliss, and for years many people assumed it was a digitally rendered image, a perfect, artificial landscape created by designers at Microsoft. But the truth is, it's a completely real, unedited photograph. It was taken in 1996 by a professional photographer named Charles O'Rear in Sonoma County, California. O'Rear was driving to see his girlfriend when he was struck by the beauty of the landscape after a recent storm had left the grass a vibrant, almost surreal green. He pulled over and captured the shot on medium format film. He uploaded it to a stock photo agency, and a few years later, Microsoft's design team discovered it while searching for images for their new operating system. They bought the full rights to the photo for an undisclosed but reportedly substantial sum. The photograph became the visual identity for an OS used by over 1 billion people, making that quiet California hillside an accidental icon of the digital age. How do you teach people to use a brand new piece of technology, something as foreign as a computer mouse was to many in the 1980s? For our second fact, we see that Microsoft's answer was simple: make it a game. Back in 1985, with the release of Windows 1.0, the mouse was not a standard computer peripheral. Most people were still navigating with arrow keys and keyboard commands. To get users comfortable with the concepts of pointing, clicking, and double-clicking, Microsoft bundled a game with the operating environment called Reversi. Reversi is a strategy board game, and the digital version required players to use the mouse to place their pieces on the board. It was a brilliant, low-pressure way to build essential motor skills for the new graphical interface. It wasn't just for fun, it was a cleverly disguised tutorial. This tradition of including simple games to teach core mechanics continued for years. Minesweeper, for example, was excellent for teaching right-clicking and precision, while Solitaire was a masterclass in dragging and dropping. These games weren't just filler, they were fundamental to making Windows accessible to everyone. And finally, at number 1, let's look at the philosophy that keeps Windows going. Unlike the old days of massive monolithic releases every 3 or 4 years, the modern approach to Windows is one of continuous evolution. Starting with Windows 10, Microsoft shifted its strategy from a product that you buy once to a service that is constantly updated. This means that instead of waiting years for a big bang Windows 12, users receive regular feature updates, security patches, and quality of life improvements delivered seamlessly through Windows Update. It's a more agile, iterative approach to development. A key part of this strategy is the Windows Insider program. This allows millions of enthusiasts, developers, and IT pros to test pre-release builds of Windows and provide direct feedback to Microsoft's engineers. This crowdsourced QA process helps catch bugs and refine features before they roll out to the general public. It's a symbiotic relationship that allows Microsoft to build a better product by listening directly to its most engaged users. This commitment to incremental improvement and maintaining backward compatibility, ensuring old software still runs on new systems, is the secret sauce that has allowed Windows to adapt and thrive for nearly 4 decades. And there you have it, 10 absolutely fascinating facts about the Windows operating system. From its humble beginnings as a GUI shell to its current reign as the most widely used desktop OS, Windows has truly shaped the world of computing. Which fact surprised you the most? Was it that the iconic Bliss wallpaper is a real photo, or that the very first version wasn't even a true OS? Let me know in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious to hear what you guys think, as the history here is just so deep and full of these little details that are easy to miss. This journey through Windows history really highlights the mix of engineering, marketing, and sometimes pure luck that goes into creating a product that touches billions of lives. The story of Windows is the story of the modern PC, with all its triumphs and controversies. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please give this video a big thumbs up, share it with your tech-loving friends, and if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any of our updated insights of the world here at Top 10 Worldwide. We're always digging for these kinds of stories, the tech behind the tech, and your support makes it all possible. Stay informed and stay curious. Please like, share, and subscribe to Top 10 Worldwide. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.